Hi, I'm Izzy Wall. I'm curator here at No.1 Royal Crescent in Bath. I'm here today with Libby Foot, who was our writer in residence for the exhibition The Most Tiresome Place in the World, Jane Austen in Bath, which ran from July to November 2025 and was part of our celebrations of the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. We're here today to have a chat about the process. So, what inspired you to become a writer?
I think that I've always been kind of writing something from quite an early age, whether that's sort of, short stories or poems. I think like a lot of people who write, I just love a good story. And that's whether that's, a novel or something that someone told you kind of secondhand, or something that you overheard. And I think that I was also lucky to grow up in a house with lots of books and lots of reading, which definitely inspired me to then want to tell those kinds of stories myself.
What attracted you to the role of writer in residence for this exhibition?
It was actually shared to me by someone I know who sent it to me and said, this would be perfect for you. And the more I read the description of the project, I thought that would be really, really amazing. It was kind of one of those stars aligning moments. I've always had a bit of a strange sort of connection to Jane Austen throughout my life. I go by Libby, but my full name is Elizabeth, and I was named after Lizzie Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, and my middle name is Jane as well. So my mum's always been a keen Jane Austen fan, and that's definitely something that's been passed on to me as well. So the opportunity to really delve into her work and create something based on the themes of the exhibition was an absolute dream.
You've touched on it a little bit already, but what was your view of Jane Austen coming into the project?
I think I've always been a keen Jane Austen fan. As a child, I chose to do a project on her for school. And then when it came to university, I was sort of writing essays about Jane Austen. I think I've always viewed her as obviously an amazing literary figure, but I think perhaps not necessarily delved into Jane Austen, the person. So I think that's part of what really drew me to this project, was the opportunity to look more into her biography and learn more about the person, Jane Austen.
Has your understanding or relationship with Jane Austen changed throughout this project?
I think definitely. I think as difficult as it is to ever say that you feel closer to a historical figure, I think that I definitely do feel a bit closer in a strange sense. I think that I was rereading Lucy Worsley's biography of Jane Austen, and there was kind of an anecdote in there that she described that was sort of passed down through several families, where someone had recalled seeing a very young Jane Austen kind of running across these fields to go and see her friend. And that image really stuck with me. It inspired one of the poems in the collection, Across the Fields. And I think it definitely really struck a chord with me, because it is a really good reminder that, as well as being this literary figure that's almost a bit larger than life, she was also a living, breathing person with, wants and desires and dislikes. I think also the project made me realise how much Jane Austen's work has influenced my own writing, perhaps without me even really realising it. I think that a lot of my work has always been very, very character driven, very much to do with kind of the development of characters, and things like, free and direct discourse and things like that has always kind of cropped up in my work. So it was interesting reading Austen's work and seeing how much of an influence it had on my own.
You've been in residence while the exhibition has been open, and you've had a chance to observe and chat to visitors when they've been round. Do you have any key moments or any memorable exchanges with the visitors that stick in your mind?
I think some of the key moments were around the more kind of poignant items in the exhibition. So things like the lock of George Austen's hair, Jane Austen's letters, her manuscript of the Watsons and things like that. I think that people really connected with those slightly more touching moments. I also did have a conversation with someone where we were discussing how Jane Austen would feel if she knew that her legacy was so tied to this place that she didn't really like that much. And I think we came to the conclusion that she would probably find it quite funny, and that she would probably see the funny side of it. We also did a few writing workshops with this project as well, which was really rewarding. There was one session in particular with, there was a girl who was very shy and quite quiet. And towards the end of the workshop, she kind of came over and presented this piece of work that she'd done. And she was so proud of her writing. And it was really, really heartwarming and very rewarding to see, I think.
Has the experience either changed or developed your writing or writing process?
I think definitely. I've always kind of thought that there are almost two different types of writing, at least for me. One is the kind of mad rush when you're feeling really inspired and the writing feels really effortless and very kind of easy. And then there's the sort of the hard work of it as well, which can be not always as much fun, but very, very necessary. I think that it's made me realize that both are as important as the other. And I think that sometimes you have to kind of sit down and write even when you're not completely in that headspace, because you never know what might come of it.
How did you feel seeing your words on the walls of the exhibition?
I think that was a really, really special moment for me. I think it, as someone who's been writing for years and years and years, it was really, really special to see my words on the walls, especially, in the same room as Jane Austen's work as well. That was really amazing. I think it really kind of spoke to the inner child in me as well, who's been writing for so long. Being able to see my words on the walls was really special. I took 100 pictures and have been showing them to anyone who will let me.
If you could sit down and have a cup of tea with Jane Austen, what would you ask her?
I think it would be too tantalising not to ask her what kind of ideas for novels and sort of drafts she maybe had turning over in her head that she maybe didn't write down. I think that would be too good of an opportunity to miss. I think also it would be really interesting to find out what her sources of inspiration are, because I've always felt that inspiration can come from absolutely anywhere. It can be, a photograph or a drawing or a piece of artwork. And I think that it would be really interesting to find out where she drew her inspiration. I think also when I'm writing, I'm always very conscious that there is a reader and there is someone who will see it. And I would love to ask Jane Austen, what would you write if you knew that no one would ever see it? What would you kind of put into that work if there were no kind of readers to think about?
Are there any other British historical writers that you would like to give the same treatment to and do a similar project with?
I think the list would be very, very long, if I'm honest. I think there are lots of writers that it would be really rewarding to kind of delve into. I've always been a big fan of the Bronte sisters, and I think Anne Bronte in particular would be really interesting to look into, especially as I think a lot of the time she's been kind of overshadowed a little bit by her sisters. So I think a project on Anne Bronte's work would be really rewarding.
We specifically wanted to commission an emerging writer at the beginning of their career for this project, and it's been great to have you on board and being able to provide an opportunity for you to develop your work. What advice would you give other emerging writers who are just starting out, having gone through this process?
I think that one piece of advice I would definitely give is to take every opportunity that comes to you. I think that I'm definitely one of those people who thinks you'll never know if you don't try. And I think that taking kind of any opportunity to publish your work or share your work is really, really important. I think from a writing perspective, I think that it's also just so important to kind of surround yourself with anything that you find inspiring, whether that's music or films or other books. I think that's really important. The more inspiration you have around you, the more likely it is that you'll kind of have that light bulb moment and want to write something new. I think also this might just be the perfectionist in me, but I think it's important to always remember that the kind of quirks in your work and flaws, I'm saying that in quotation marks, but the little imperfections in your work are what make it unique, and that's the most valuable part of your work. So I think that it's always good to write knowing that things will never be 100% perfect, and that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes it unique.
Now we come to the most important final question. What is your favourite Jane Austen novel, and who are your favourite Jane Austen characters? They don't have to be from the same novel.
I think this is a really interesting question, because I think if you'd asked me at various points in my life, the answer would always change. I do have a real soft spot for Emma. I do really love Emma. I know that Jane Austen said that in writing Emma Woodhouse, she was, trying to write a character that no one would like. But I think in doing so, she wrote a character that I at least really, really like. I think also the beauty of the project is that it kind of encouraged me to revisit some novels of hers that I hadn't read in a while. So things like Northanger Abbey. I love a coming of age story. I also really definitely relate to Catherine's overactive imagination, I think. I think also I can't not mention Lizzie Bennet. I think being named after her, I can't not mention her. I think Pride and Prejudice seems like an obvious answer, but I think it's an obvious answer for a good reason. I think that is definitely a favourite.
Well, thank you so much for chatting here today and for all your work over the project. It's been really special, and it's been great to have a modern, contemporary take as part of the exhibition, and it's really added to it.
Yeah,
so thank you so much.
It's been really amazing. I've genuinely loved every step of the project. It's definitely pushed me a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and I've done some things that I've never done before, and it's been a real dream.
Thank you.
Thank you.